risk is, if you're a conservative, is the country will take something over nothing when they decide they've got a problem. And I think the country's in the process of deciding we've got a problem.
Friends, this is Carr Scott. This program is on tobacco.
Test to the land of the long-leaf vine.
North Carolina stands on the edge of greatness.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Longleaf Politics Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, former United States Representative Bob Inglis. He represented South Carolina's Greenville-Spartanburg area for 6 terms, and now he serves as the executive director of Republican, which bills itself as the conservative answer to climate change and the vanguard of the eco-rights. We'll get into all that in just a little bit. But I do need to point out he's got some North Carolina connections as a graduate of Duke University. Mr. Inglis, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Andrew. Thank you. And of course, now half of the crowd doesn't like me if it's a Duke. There's that other school down the road in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I actually went to Chapel Hill, but I have a lot of respect for Duke University. All right, so I want to start with the big picture. So you've had one of the more unusual journeys, I'd say, in conservative politics. First elected 1992, served 3 terms, lost a Senate race primary, came back and won your seat in Congress, another 3 terms, and now you're in the political advocacy space. Did I get all that right?
Yeah, recidivist.
More or less.
That's what that is. That's what that is.
So what got you into politics in the first place?
Wow, my mother used to tell me, Bob, you're either going to be a politician or a preacher. You talk so much. So that, I guess, it's always been an interest. Let's see. I went to Duke, as you just mentioned, went to University of Virginia for law school. While there, really was challenged in my assumptions about politics by a whole bunch of people that had lived and worked in Washington, and that before coming to law school at UVA, that was a fairly common path. And particularly the Christian believers had thought through the application of truth to public policy. I had to admit that I really hadn't. I just thought it'd be sort of cool and a kick to be in politics. And so my wife and I came under real conviction that wasn't appropriate motivation for a Christian believer in politics. So we sort of swore off the politics thing and moved to Savannah, Georgia after law school. Spent 2 years there, and in that time, got I think a deeper agenda in politics. Moved back to South Carolina in 1986, and then had the opportunity to run for Congress in 92. Yeah, it was. It became this thing where we're about agents of reconciliation. That's what, maybe you didn't want all this, Andrew, but, in 2 Corinthians 5, the Apostle Paul talks about being agents of reconciliation. And so that's what I think the calling for the believer is in politics.
Got it. Oh, that's interesting. We are very Bible friendly here on the Longleaf Politics Podcast, so I appreciate any and all scriptural references. In a minute, we're going to kind of transition and talk about, conservatism and the environmental movement. But I want to start by asking you, to you, what does it mean to be politically conservative?
Yeah, I think it means seeing. Actually, to continue on this spiritual theme, God is a blesser of every soul, not government. It seems so. That leads me to a small government perspective. It's about in the specific work that I do at Republic EN, it's about taking care of creation, and it's about individual responsibility and being accountable. So those are key concepts, I think, for the conservative, and an awareness that there are just things we need to do, like balance the budget. There are things that we need to do, create opportunities for people in the free enterprise system. Devotion to the Constitution is something that I think is conservative, and to the rule of law. Seeing maybe this is a little bit beyond conservatism and something else. It's seeing a role for America in the world. To whom much is given, much will be required. In others, that we're people that reach out to the world and try to show a way. My friend George W. Bush, and he is my friend, one of his best lines was, freedom is not America's gift to the world, it's God's gift to humankind, and or something like that. I'm misquoting him a little bit there, but it's basically that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think those are the things that are key to being conservative.
Got it. Yeah. How has the conservative movement changed between early 90s when you got your start in politics to today?
Yeah, today my party, the Republican Party, we're republican.org. We're a little bit different. We even spell it differently. It's EN is for energy, entrepreneurship, the environment. So we're conservatives who care about climate change. But my party, the Republican Party, AN Party, is now, I think, more a populist nationalist party at this moment than it is a conservative party. Populist in that it has some rabble-rousing kind of, get 'em, yeah. And a nationalist in that it really sort of has sort of an exclusionary tone to it that I think is not really conservative. The conservative position is that no, the idea is that we want people to succeed, people to flourish in the free enterprise system, not that we want to reward our friends and punish our enemies. That can be nationalism, and I think that's sadly where we are at this moment. But I have hope, Andrew, that it's gonna turn around.
Yeah. And we'll come back to that. I want to dedicate the end of the podcast to talk about the hope part, where things go from here. But I think that now is a good time to segue to your work with Republic EN. And I encourage all my listeners to go to republicen.com. It's like Republican, but just with an E instead of an A, republican.org. So I'll admit, you're going to need to convince me a little bit. I'm an Eagle Scout. I love the environment. And I agree that it's important to preserve and protect God's creation. I even believe that the climate is changing and that humans are committed to it. But still, when I hear the terms eco-right and fighting climate change, it's hard for me to separate that from a lot of the climate alarmism that we've seen coming from the left. There's the famous AOC quote saying that 6 years ago that the world was going to end in 12 years. We're halfway to that point, and I think we're going to make it another 6 years. But so my temptation is to tune your message out. Why is that the wrong approach? Why should I pay attention?
Understandable why you would, because if we're all going to die next Tuesday, well, let's just eat, drink, and be merry, right? I mean, if you tell me we're hosed, well, then I give up. But if you tell me, hey, what we have here is a risk, and we want to avoid that risk, that's something that would fit quite well with conservative thinking. That's and, it's like what George Shultz, when he was Secretary of State, that's a respectable Secretary of State right there, a guy named George Shultz, who went to Ronald Reagan and said, Mr. President, we have a problem, a risk with ozone depletion. And it has to do with some refrigerants, and we need to buy an insurance policy. And Reagan said, yeah, makes sense. You got a risk, you buy an insurance policy. And, what turned out there is that we had the ability to make those things better than the rest of the world. And so it actually turned out very well for American companies. And and serving the world. That's the way capitalism works, is that you make money by serving people. As Steve Forbes said when he was running for president, that's another conservative right there, who says, yeah, that's the beauty of the capitalistic system. You make money by serving other people. And so we have this risk, and it's not that we're going to die next Tuesday. It's not that we have to walk and eat bugs. It's not that we get to shiver or sweat in the dark, depending on the season. It's rather that this is an opportunity to light up the world with more energy, more mobility, more freedom, and to create a lot of wealth here in America and a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunity if we just win this electrification revolution. And that's what we're in the midst of. There was a time when we operated on whale oil, we humans, hunted whales, got the blubber, turned it into whale oil, lit up our huts or our houses. Then we found out about coal. Coal's pretty good because it, can create warmth. And then we went to petroleum. Now we are clearly headed to the electrification of everything. And even though Donald Trump hates them, electric cars are clearly on the future list. BYD, a Chinese car company, used to be a battery company. Now they're a car company, is in the largest car market in the world, which is China, and the largest car producing country in the world. And now over 50% of their cars are EVs. BYD, that Chinese car company, is now in double-digit market share in Europe. They got a deal in Canada, and they can sell cars in Latin America somewhere in the $20,000 range. Their car goes 300 miles on a 5-minute charge. So that's causing Ford Motor Company to say, we've got to meet that competition. And the CEO of Ford has driven one of those BYD cars for a while now, and he says he is humbled because that car can go 300 miles on a 5-minute charge. That's basically what an internal combustion car does. They're all calibrated to go 300 miles. So whatever kind of car you've got, the manufacturer has calibrated the size of the gas tank to give you 300 miles before you have to go back to the gas station. And it probably takes you about 5 minutes, right, to gas up. And that's what that electric car can do. So we're in the midst of this electrification revolution. And really think about it, everything is electrified, and to include drones. Warfighting is
Sure.
now about batteries and munitions and essentially electricity. And so we'll either double down on burning rocks and digging stuff out of the ground and burning it, or we will get in this competition and we'll figure out a way to make small modular reactors that create no emissions and that can power AI data centers and do the things that we need to do and want to do, or we'll be the people in the world that said, no, people aren't going to ride in those cars. They don't want cars. We want horses still. That's really the transition we're in. Is we're in the transition between horse-drawn carriages and Henry Ford's Model T.
Yeah. Well, in this country, we debate personalities instead of issues now. But I remember back when we did debate issues, we talked about something called, an all of the above energy policy. Is what you're describing in line with that, or is it something a little different?
We think it's in line with that, that basically what we want to do is we want to eliminate all the subsidies for all the fuels and have the free enterprise system sorted out. And of course, that's sort of bad for the wind and solar people because they sort of rely on those subsidies until you make coal and petroleum accountable, that word that I used earlier when you asked me what a conservative is. And it's simple accountability for for dumping into the trash dump of the sky. Right now, I get to dump into the trash dump of the sky without any accountability. I can burn and do whatever I want to do without any accountability. Burn gasoline, burn petroleum products, burn coal, without many tipping fee, and Charlotte, where you live, Greenville, South Carolina, where I live, if you're a trash hauler, and you take trash to the city dump, you pay a tipping fee based on the weight of that truck going into that dump. There was a time way back in the 60s or something where I guess where probably some conservatives or people that thought they were conservative might have railed against that. Can you imagine? That's the craziest thing ever. They're going to charge me to dump in the city dump. I'm a taxpayer here, and they're going to charge. Now, what we say is, yeah, we're going to charge you for the space you take up in the dump because we're going to have to build a new dump once you fill it up. And so, pay for what you take. And that's what we think at republicen.org is the whole thing about the trash dump of the sky is just pay for the space you take.
So what you're talking about is the carbon tax, is how it's most commonly known. And I do not have a severe reaction against carbon tax. Like I'm drawn to the argument about pricing in externalities, and I agree with you that it's a better way forward than pure regulation or pure subsidies. But I do have some concerns about it. People right now are hurting when it comes to the cost of living. Wouldn't a carbon tax just send the price of energy skyrocketing?
Yeah, it would not skyrocketing, but it would make the price of energy go up, and it would hurt poor people. If it's a naked carbon tax, in other words, if you just tax carbon dioxide, that's all you do, that would expand government. But what if we untaxed some form of income while we were doing the carbon tax so that it's what you call revenue neutral? That's what we're for at republicen.org. We're for not growing government while we're solving climate change. We're actually for the small government solution, back to that conservative thing I was talking about. And so what we would do is we would say, how about we reduce payroll taxes, FICA taxes? There's somebody working at a McDonald's near you or near me right now. It's her second or third job. She's paying 6.2% that she sees on her check in the FICA box, FICA box. McDonald's is paying the other 6.2. It's a 12.4% tax on that second or third job. It's whoppingly regressive. Regressivity, is where economists use that term to refer to taxes that actually hurt poor people or require more percentage of a poor person's resources than a wealthy person's resources. And that's what the FICA tax does. So you reduce that tax. You put on the carbon tax. The Congressional Budget Office says the bottom 70% of Americans end up better off in that tax swap where you off income on pollution. Because she has a way, that woman where I'm positing at McDonald's, she has a way of reducing her carbon tax. Turn down the thermostat, put plastic on the windows in the winter, drive a little bit less, conserve energy. She can do things to reduce the carbon tax. Can't do anything about the payroll tax because McDonald's isn't going to take the risk of not paying that payroll tax. And so therefore, you can really improve the lot, like I say, of the bottom 70% of Americans. The only people that do worse, by the way, are the top 30%. They're people with large houses, corporate jets, heated swimming pools. We're for freedom at republican.org. If you've got any of those things, a large house, a heated pool, or a corporate jet, take us on a trip somewhere or let us come to your house in January for a pool party. But we want you to pay for what you take. And so once you start paying for the true cost of heating that pool in Charlotte in January, you'll probably drain it sort of about, I don't know, beginning of October maybe, and you'll fill it back up, but I don't know, end of April or something. But if you have arthritis and need to be in that pool, the heated pool, that's fine. Just pay for what you take. And see, we think that's the beauty of this thing is when you have people paying for what they take, they regulate their own appetites. They make their own choices. But we don't need to regulate heated pools out of existence. We don't need to,
Gas
I
stoves.
what's that?
Oh, or gas stoves.
Yeah, or gas stoves, or yeah, we let people make their own choices. But once you see the price of that gas, because now when burned, it creates CO2, and we know that. We know how much that is going to be. The beauty, by the way, very important, Andrew, this is something so important, is that if, for example, take the gas stove example, it's not like you got to keep records at your house about how long you had the gas on, that's not it. You don't keep any records at all in this. We just have the IRS go to the under 2,000 companies who either mine coal or put stuff in a pipeline. That'd be either natural gas or petroleum products in a pipeline. And we say to them, you've just been taxed. Your product has just been taxed based on the amount of stuff that's going to go into the trash dump at the sky. And so those 2,000 companies have a new relationship with the IRS. But that's it. Just them. Nobody else. Here we are, on tax day, we're recording. Nobody else talks to the IRS about that. It's just when you get your gas bill for the gas stove that you're using, you notice that, hey, the price is up some because the gas company has had to pay that tax back at the pipeline. You don't keep any records, but that may cause you to say, hey, maybe that induction stove would do just about as well now that this gas stove that I've got is about to wear out. And that's where this incredible movement within the free enterprise system takes hold. And people say, yeah, these induction stoves are pretty cool. Use a lot less electricity. I can reduce my cost. Yeah, but if you like gas, you're the chef that insists on gas. Well, go ahead and use it. Just pay for what you dump into the sky.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I think politically, it's a little bit of a hard sell right now because all the conversation is about how do we reduce costs? How do we, people's energy bills are already spiking. I know, here we have Duke Energy here, and my bill has gone up considerably, and there's a ton of new energy demand. Why is now the right time to push in this direction? When there's all sorts of stressors on the energy market.
Yeah, a great question. Of course, I don't know when people will be listening, but you and I are recording on April 15th, 2026, in the midst of a war with Iran that has the Straits of Hormuz all bottled up. And this might be the best time to be talking about this. Is it, do we want to be dependent on this region of the world called the Middle East that is inherently unstable and that has people that are so prosperous that the dictator of Saudi Arabia, for example, can send an assassin squad to chop up a journalist into pieces, literally? Is that the people we want to hang with? Or do we want to say to those people, see if you can drink that stuff? We just don't need you like we used to. We've electrified everything. And we just don't need you, Vladimir Putin. Watch your economy go to shambles. Or
Yeah.
maybe what you want to do is figure out a way to also get in this electrification revolution. But MBS, no more assassin squads. You just lost your money. And, you got plenty of it. I know you got plenty, and you'll have plenty for the rest of your life. And maybe you can go, do whatever you want to do, but no more from us, no more from the rest of the world. And by the way, Andrew, to make sure that everybody knows, currently America is an exporter of petroleum. So it's not like we're relying for our own use
Right.
on that stuff coming through the Straits of Hormuz. But 20% of the world's petroleum passes through that strait. And so that means the world price which is what we're subject to here in America. We like to think that, no, we got these oceans around us and we're separate from the rest of the world. No, no, no. This is a world price on oil. And you betcha that people here that make petroleum, they will sell it somewhere else if the price is higher somewhere else. And so it's not like we can say, we got our own and aren't we happy? No, 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 no. It's a world price. So wouldn't it be great and increase freedom to be able to say to the Middle East, as I said, see if you can drink that stuff. Just don't need you like we used to.
Yeah, it's a good point. That brought up a whole bunch of questions I want to ask, but I'll start with this one. I'm glad you mentioned the world market because it reminded me of something I wanted to ask you about. You know, the United States, we've done a lot over the past decades: clean air, clean water. I think probably our coal industry is among the cleanest in the world. But there's lots of other countries in the world that are, earlier on in the Industrial Revolution are the bigger polluters in the world. Why is it important for the United States to take actions like this? And does it even make a difference when we've got so many other countries in the world that are not in line?
Yeah, very important question. That's the key question that we find as we reach out to right of center audiences at republican.org. That's our target audience. Other people can talk to left of center people better than we can because we are conservatives who reach out to fellow conservatives. And so it used to be back when I was getting tossed out of Congress in 2010 for the heresy of saying that climate change is real and some other heresies. It was aggressive disbelief because back then it was the dark days of the Great Recession. It was essentially, I don't believe in climate change. You shouldn't either. That was sort of the thing back then. That's all changed now. There's still some people that are that way, but most people have stopped arguing with thermometers, as my friend Catherine Hayhoe likes to say. And they realize, as you said at the outset, yeah, obviously it's real. But now what the legitimate question from conservatives is the one you just asked. How do you get the world in on this thing? I mean,
Sure.
we can do all kinds of things here, but the devilish problem about climate change is emissions anywhere or climate change everywhere. And so, if you regulate here and they don't regulate in China, well, manufacturers may pick up and move from here to there. When they get there, they emit more than they were emitting here. You just went downhill in solving climate change.
Right.
That was arguably the Clean Power Plan in the Obama administration. Okay, next possibility. You can incentivize clean energy. That was basically the Biden plan in the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, that would cause American companies to deploy a lot of wind and solar because those tax credits are powerful. And as a conservative, by the way, I've sort of not met many tax credits I didn't like. There are ways to reduce taxes. I mean, if you give somebody a tax credit, that is a reduction in taxes. So I'm generally inclined to like those things. But the problem is Chinese companies don't pay American taxes. And so those credits don't affect their economics. So you got the same behavior going on in China, even though you've cleaned up the act here in America.
Right.
So leads us to the third possibility, which is, okay, we've just done that with that lady with the McDonald's we were just talking about. We put on a carbon tax here in America, but we've reduced her payroll taxes. And so now she's actually better off. But here's the kicker. If we've done that, then under existing World Trade Organization rules, no new trade war. Under existing World Trade Organization rules, you could apply that same tax to imports coming from countries that do not have the same carbon tax, making it in their interest to follow our lead. Why would it be in their interest? Well, China sends, say, a sheet of flat steel coming through the port of Seattle right now. Cheap steel, they manipulate their currency. They stole the technology. They dumped a lot of trash into the sky. And so here it comes, cheap Chinese steel. I'm sort of sore about that because we make some relatively cleaner steel down in the lower part of South Carolina. But here it comes, cheap Chinese steel. We apply our carbon tax. China objects in the World Trade Organization, saying it's an impermissible tariff. We think they lose that case because it is a permissible tariff. And so 24 hours after they lose, because they do reach consensus easily in China, not a very fair government, not a very nice government, doggone efficient. Dictatorships are that way, very efficient. And not one you want to be. You don't want to be one. You don't want to live in one.
Sure.
But anyway, so 24 hours later, they'd have the same carbon tax. Why? Well, they just paid in Seattle a carbon tax. It's now being sent to Washington, D.C. If they'd collected that carbon tax themselves, the money would be in Beijing, and the sheet of flat steel would be coming through the port of Seattle with no adjustment. So 24 hours later, they've got the same carbon tax. Then the whole world follows, because if you're doing business anywhere in the world, you're doing business with America and China. So then 8 billion people start seeing the true cost of burning fossil fuels because it's built into the price of everything. And they make their own decisions. And my example I often give is the lady from McDonald's goes to grocery store tonight because she's got a bridal shower she's going to, and she's supposed to bring the plates. So she goes there with her bigger paycheck in her pocket because we reduced her FICA tax, and she sees the plastic plates and the paper plates on the shelf. Well, the paper is up in price a little bit because of the carbon tax. Chainsaw gas, natural gas at the paper plant to dry the paper. So the paper plate companies has had to increase the price of their product a little bit. But the plastic plates, wow, they're up in price because that's all petroleum, all natural gas, all the time. And so it's got a lot of carbon tax built into it. And now she's standing there in the grocery store. She's choosing between the paper and the plastic. Well, we're for freedom at Republican. If she just likes plastic, go ahead and buy it. But if she's cheap like me, she's going to pick up those paper plates. And that's going to happen on every shelf in the store. There's going to be some greener, cleaner, renewable thing that's relatively cheaper than the dirty stuff that's now just been made accountable. Again, just accountability. It's this basic conservative concept. And to leave the consumer in the liberty of enlightened self-interest. She can pick up the plastic if she wants to, but nobody's going to regulate. We don't want to regulate her and tell her, you can't have plastic this week. You had it last week. We just want to tell her, make your own decisions. And now we see the price of everything is true to the marketplace. And that's, we think, rock solid conservatism.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty compelling. I will say, paper plates I'm on board with, but no matter how cheap paper straws are, you're not going to catch me buying paper straws. Just can't stand them.
That's what I hear from a lot of people.
That's interesting. You said earlier, 2010, you got cast out of Congress for the heresy of talking about climate change. That's about the time, as I'm thinking back, when Republicans stopped talking about it altogether for the most part. I mean, I remember 2010, the Georgia governor's race. There was a commercial, I think it was Nathan Deal. He was talking about how Georgia is the Saudi Arabia of pine trees and talking about generating more energy from tree products. But I have heard zero from Republicans since then, really, in terms of an actual conservative response. What has been the damage done by the Republican Party just completely abandoning this issue?
Well, I think the risk is, if you're a conservative, is the country will take something over nothing when they decide they've got a problem. And I think the country's in the process of deciding we've got a problem. And so what we often say at Republican.org is get this right before big government gets it wrong. And so the country will take a lousy regulatory solution over this free enterprise solution that I'm talking about, unless the party of free enterprise comes forward with the solution. So either we get in this conversation, or maybe we get some really lousy regulatory solution. And that's, if you think about it, Social Security, which is a Ponzi scheme. Okay, I'm not running for president. I can say it. Mitt Romney, unfortunately, said it in Florida, and thou shalt not criticize Social Security in Florida, lest thou lose thy presidential race. That's for sure. And so, and by the way, anybody currently listening to us who's currently on Social Security, it's fine for you. It's fine for you. Your grandkids, not so much.
Right.
And so we got to do something for those grandkids. And so, but if you think about it, Social Security, we apparently didn't have a very good alternative. Medicare, some people say we should have had a better alternative. Well, Obamacare, maybe we didn't have a better alternative. So you end up with these things where there are opportunities for conservatives to step forward with something would really work.
Yeah.
And so this thing of pricing in the negative effects of burning fossil fuels and just letting consumers then choose and watching the free enterprise system deliver innovation faster than government regulations or fickle tax incentives could ever imagine, that's our opportunity right now. We can win at this. And we conservatives can win at it. We Americans can win at it. We, the people of the planet, can win at it, and really improve life. It's like I was in New York City this fall, and I was walking down the street, and the air was just terrible. I mean, it's like there are all these buses and trucks and cars, and it's just terrible air. It was sort of still where I was. And it occurred to me someday my 7 grandchildren are going to be able to say, can you believe that Mimi and Papa used to breathe that stuff? The stuff coming out of those engines? They used to breathe it. Like me saying to my grandmother, who grew up in South Georgia, can you believe that Nanny used to ride at the south end of a northbound horse on a carriage? And so really we've got an opportunity here to either embrace the future and really make something way better, or, like I say, just try to pretend to be the people that double down on burning rocks and stuff out of the ground. The reason I say pretend is that I'm certain of this: economic realities overwhelm shaky ideologies, and this populist nationalism we got going right now, that is a shaky ideology.
Yeah.
We are
No,
about to
that's for
find
sure.
out that thing isn't working. And so when we find that out, we're looking for people that have solid solutions, people that say, hey, this works. This is sound economics. And that should be the strength of my party, the Republican Party. And we at republican.org would like to see them embrace this solid economic solution.
Yeah. Well, I'll say, I can't say that you've completely convinced me yet. I need to do some more thinking or more research. But I will say I love to hear a positive, affirmative, visionary case for something. I feel like that's just been so missing in our politics over the past decade. It's become all about opposition and negativity and being defined by what you're against rather than what you're for. So I really appreciate you bringing some solid ideas to the table. Um, but
And
on
Andrew, if
that
I
note,
could, I should
go
add
ahead.
something right there. Since you opened that door, I should make sure to know that we at Republican.org describe this in terms of conservatism, and it's all red, and 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 some people could be listening to you and wonder, well, what is he? Does he want to bring America together, or does he want to divide America? Well, here's something interesting. What we're for at Republican.org is the same thing that Al Gore has actually been for about 30 years. I asked him several years ago if I could keep on saying that. He said, hold up, Bob. If you're talking a low, and I said, no, sir, I'm talking a substantial carbon tax, it's steadily rising, paired with a reduction in payroll taxes, so there's no growth of government, applied to imports, so we make it in an interest to our trading partners to do the same thing. He said, yeah, fine then. You can tell people what you're for. Republican.org is the same thing I've been for about 30 years. And so we have this hope that we could actually bring America together and lead the world to solutions. But here's a problem that I should admit. Al Gore is now probably milk toast in the Democratic Party. I mean, he's like a centrist. You know, he's playing at the 40-yard lines. We got some people over there left of center down at the 10-yard line, you know, saying absolutely nutty stuff. Just like in my party, we got people at the 10-yard line saying absolutely nutty stuff.
For sure.
And so, but can we as Americans say, hey, listen, we can play between the 40s. That's where you actually are, you know, moving things. And so, even though we talk in these terms, conservative terms, in order to help conservatives hear it in their own language, because if they keep on hearing the people down at the 10-yard line on the left-hand side of the field about how we got to walk and eat bugs, or, you know, repent of the capitalistic system. No, actually, the capitalistic system is what's going to save us from this problem. And so that's in the 40-yard lines. And Al Gore is actually a guy who happens to understand the capitalistic system because, remember, he was on the board of Apple. The guy's made a lot of money. And so apparently he knows a thing or two about innovation. And so the people that down there at the 10-yard lines, though, that are talking about how we're all going to die next Tuesday, they have their compatriots on the 10-yard line on the right-hand side because they need each other, those people at the 10-yard lines, because they can just fight all day long and yell at each other. Meanwhile, the country is looking for people with solutions.
Right.
And so anyway, sorry, give me an amen. I'll stop preaching about that.
No, I appreciate that. And it reminds me of a conversation I have a lot with folks on the national debt. You know, everybody understands that there's a problem. And, you know, you and I, we don't even have time to get into, you know, whether we have the capacity to deal with this carbon tax before we solve the national debt problem. But my point is that everyone agrees that that's a problem. But the issue is that probably nothing is ever going to happen until the pain arrives, until we're absolutely forced to do it. Maybe that's a pessimistic view. But I feel like there's the same problem with the climate change issue is, you know, is there a way to have to muster the political will to do something smart about it before we get backed into a corner and are feeling the pain?
Yeah, and you mentioned that earlier. That is the challenge. You know, that this is the political realities are that this is a really difficult. It's basically this. Trust me, I'm going to put on this carbon tax, and I'm going to reduce your payroll taxes. Trust me. The problem is most people say, no, I don't trust you. And so that's the problem. We're in this low trust environment where
Yes.
we need people that can come forward and say, no, we as a free people can decide what to tax and what to untax. And sometimes when I run into people, Andrew, that are really resistant to that concept, I go ahead and give up. I say, okay, you're right. Get the palace on the line. Let's apologize to Charles. Let's tell him we're very sorry for what happened back there in 1776. And the experiment in self-government has failed. And we're sorry, Mr. King. Will you please come back and rule over us? And usually that wakes people up in the crowd. They say, no, we're not ready to make that call. Okay, then. So free people can decide what to tax and what to untax. Free people can decide how to balance the budget, how to fix Social Security. They really can. If we decide that really we're going to listen to people who are coming forward with solutions and who have the ability to work together, rather than the people at this crazy 10-yard line who are monetizing clicks by saying totally outrageous stuff. You know, you got Candace Owens over there saying that Erica Kirk should be investigated for the murder of Charlie Kirk. Now, what does that do for Candace? Well, it drives up her numbers and increases clicks and increases the compensation that she gets from social media sites that people by accident click on or whatever and end up getting her 2 or 3 cents or 4 cents a click or something. That is what we've got to understand is going on. We got grifters over here in the 10-yard line on that side
Yes.
and on this side. And we want people who can come forward and say, here's how to fix Social Security. Here's how to fix climate change. Here's how to balance the budget. We need those people. And the question, Andrew, now back to you, and finally answering your question, is when's that happen? Usually it happens when the crisis is upon us, like you said.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was just talking recently to a mayor of a coastal city, and they're talking about a $1 billion adaptation plan to try to keep the salt water out of that city. That's one city on the east coast of South Carolina, just one. There are lots more cities. And so what I like to say about that is, if we could head off some of that, wouldn't that probably be a good idea too? Besides lifting the seawalls and such, maybe we could try to head off some of the sea level rise.
Yeah. Well, I think there is an appetite in America for some more pragmatic solutions oriented people. There was a great, I don't know if you listened to it, the New York Times just did a great podcast with former Senator Ben Sass. And
Yeah.
it was great. If anybody hasn't listened to that, go listen to that. But he's exactly along those lines. He's got his core principles and doesn't compromise on principles, but he is also focused on actually getting things done. And he was very popular, and I'm certainly keeping him and his family in my prayers right now. But I say that to say, I think you got a point. I love the optimism. We're gonna have to leave it there. Unfortunately, that's a good place to stop. Again, you've been listening to the Longleaf Politics podcast. Our guest today, former United States Representative Bob Inglis. He is now the executive director of republican.org. Go check out his site. I'm going to be spending some more time on it, learning some more. And Representative, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Andrew. Good to be with you.
North Carolina.